Hello, my name is Alfred Toth, and I'm a California certified nurseryman. Today I'd like to share with you my recipe for orchid potting mix. First, a little bit about the setup in my potting area. This is the bench that I use for most of my work, and I have just a basic potting soil here. But because the orchid blend, the ingredients are a little bit more costly, I want to keep it separate, and then if I have any extra, I can save it into a bag or another potting pot container. So the three ingredients in the orchid mix are fine bark, and you want to look for orchid bark if you can. Okay. There's a difference, but it's a fine bark. I use cinder rock. Cinder is volcanic cinder. If you can see a close-up of it, there's little holes in there. The cinder is very light for its size, and this adds air. This adds air to the soil mix, and every time you water, because this is iron rich, every time you water there's a release of iron in the soil, which adds green to the plant. And the third ingredient is Miracle-Gro Potting soil. Okay, so I use equal parts, and you just put them together like this, equal parts, bark, cinder, and potting soil. Okay, so you can use your hands. I like to use a little tiny flat shovel like this. I use one hand, and you blend it. We use two things to judge this: visual and how does it feel. How does it feel in my hand? Okay, this is pretty much, and I feel it very coarse, and I know when I plant and then water, the water's going to go right through, and that's what I want, because I don't really want this plant to hold water. I water about every other day, so the potting soil is not really a big issue. If I felt that this needed some more organic, it would be adding another part, one more part of the pine bark. And that's what I would do if I wanted to amend this a little bit more. But here we go. This is a nice mix, and very coarse, like I say, very coarse, and it's going to hold moisture but also have a lot of air for the roots. There's several types of orchids. There's terrestrial orchids. The epidendron is a good example of terrestrial orchid. That can grow in garden soil, for that matter. But you get to these Phalaenopsis, the moth orchid, that you get at Home Depot or Costco. Beautiful plant. Now this is the second bloom. I don't know if you can see it. This is the second bloom. It bloomed once, then I hid the plant, second bloom, and those are epiphytes, and that's an almost pure bark. So you have to kind of know what kind of plant you have. The bromeliads grow in the same mix. Okay, and sometimes again you can amend it a little bit. Here we go. So I have an orchid here, and this orchid has been in the pot for at least, I think, about a year. And look at it, it's all growing off to one side. See that? It's off to one side, and some of the roots are hanging over. You can see that. So I have two options here. I can move it into a bigger pot, but really the orchids like to be in small, they like their roots a little bit cramped. I'll take this out, and whatever that was before, it was the same mix. It all fell apart. Look at that. I have and there's nothing wrong with this plant. I could actually plant it in the same pot, but I have one that's just a little bit bigger. Okay, not much, but again, I don't want to put it into something too big. So I'm going to put it into this one, and I think that's going to be just about perfect. Yep. And I'll use my shovel here. You can see how I work this. Since I'm right-handed, I want to have this on my left side. And I'm just going to put that in there. You want to make sure it was off to one side, so I want to make sure this time it's in the center. And I can see new babies coming. Now, this one has a new sprout, that one has a new sprout, and there was one more. So I have to be careful I don't break those off here with my fingers. Anyway, I'm going to just shake it, settle it. And that's about it. Make sure that it's packed so that it doesn't settle some other time. So there we go. That's about it. And you can see that it's beautifully potted. Look at that. And it looks right for the size of the pot. Now that this plant has been moved up just a little bit, there's some of the babies right there. See some of those babies. Anyway, that's about it for repotting orchids. 3 parts, 3 equal parts. I'm going to write it in the notes. If you have any questions, you can always write me. Thank you for watching. And stay tuned for the next episode of